then I was the first female, too, to receive it.
That's really cool.
Oh, it is. And I tell the women, I looked out and I said, I'm accepting this for myself, but for all of you, too. Just think of the glass ceilings that have been broken in almost 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing look at your firm, what you've done. And these women that are CEOs of big companies, and I am so proud of them. And I tell them also, if you have a dream, there is not one thing that can keep you from making that dream happen except yourself. And you have to just step out, regardless of the naysayers.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do it, do it. And there is nothing. How many people have you ever heard say, gee, I'm at the end of my career here, going to retire, but I always wanted to do whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, don't go that route. Life is too short. Just jump in and do it. If it doesn't work, so what? Go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know?
When I started, I said, look, if it doesn't work, I can always get another job.
Yes.
I'm not always going to have the opportunity to do this.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, the podcast. At our recent associates, we believe that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our daily commitment lies in informing our clients about legal risks without hindering their business objectives. As we like to say, we're in the business of building companies and helping executives sleep at night. So stay tuned. Maybe you'll learn something that'll help your business grow and thrive.
Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, where we believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm your host, Rachel Reese. Before I introduce my guest, let's take a quick look at a recent case law update and break down what it means for your business. Today's update covers Trigger Energy Holdings, LLC versus Stevens from the South Dakota Supreme Court, a buyout dispute involving a struggling oilfield services company where the sellers tried to unwind a deal based on economic duress and related business tort theories. Here's what happened. Blueprint Energy Partners was formed in 2017 to provide services and equipment for oil extraction in Wyoming. It had 3 equal 1/3 partners: Trigger Energy, Gulf Coast Investments, and TCU Holdings, and a separate affiliated entity, Aladdin Capital, served as Blueprint's manager. Kent Stevens, who owned TCU, ran day-to-day operations and recruited much of the workforce. The company struggled early, burning through an initial line of credit and accumulating close to $6 million in debt, much of it owed to Aladdin. Even after conditions improved in late 2018, relationships deteriorated. Stevens pushed to buy out Gulf Coast and Trigger through TCU. TCU offered $800,000 for each 1/3 interest, well below the valuation Gulf Coast and Trigger believed was fair. And Stevens repeatedly threatened what the case calls the dynamite option. Specifically, Stevens said he would walk away, violate his non-compete, take the crew and customers, and effectively blow up the business if the offer wasn't accepted. After negotiations, including negotiations led by counsel for Gulf Coast, the parties signed a membership interest purchase agreement on July 30th, 2019. Gulf Coast and Trigger received $800,000 each for their interests, and a separate negotiated provision required repayment of Aladdin's debt over $3 million at closing. Not long after, Gulf Coast and Trigger sued Stevens, TCU, and Blueprint. They claimed the buyout resulted from economic duress, breach of fiduciary duty, shareholder oppression, unjust enrichment, and tortious interference. The trial court granted summary judgment for the defendants, and the South Dakota Supreme Court affirmed across the board. On the economic duress claim, the court stressed that pressure, even heavy pressure, isn't enough. The question is whether the plaintiffs had reasonable alternatives and a meaningful choice. Here, the court pointed to several. They could have refused to sell, pursued removal and contractual remedies tied to Stevens' employment arrangements, replaced the crew and sued for damages, or sued for interference. In other words, they made a business decision to accept a deal they thought was the least bad option, not an involuntary act compelled by wrongful coercion. The other claims failed as well. The fiduciary duty claim was unsuccessful because Blueprint was manager-managed and TCU wasn't the manager. The tortious interference claim failed because there wasn't a true third-party triangle, which means you can't viably claim a company interfered with itself when the alleged actor is part of the transaction. The oppression claim failed because the plaintiffs were not minority owners. Here, they each held an equal 1/3 interest. An unjust enrichment failed because the sale was governed by an enforceable contract and the sellers received the consideration they agreed to. So why does this matter? This case is a reminder that courts are reluctant to unwind negotiated deals as duress when sophisticated parties have time, options, and counsel, even if the negotiating tactics are aggressive. Also, it underscores how LLC fiduciary duties can depend heavily on whether the company is manager-managed or member-managed. Bottom line, if you're exiting a company or negotiating a buyout in a tough situation, get good counsel early and understand your leverage and alternate courses of action. The courts are not in the business of unwinding deals just because the price looks particularly poor in hindsight. That's all for today. I'd like to thank Miguel Otero, a junior associate in our DFW office, for his help with this update. Today, I'm joined by Ella McDonald, the founder of McDonald Land Services. McDonald Land Services is a minority-owned, female-led land brokerage firm that has supported the energy industry nationwide since 1982. What began with Ella's entrepreneurial vision has grown into a national operation with multiple offices and more than 150 contractors serving oil, gas, renewables, and emerging energy sectors. Her journey reflects her dedication to excellence and integrity and strong client relationships. Welcome to An Ounce of Prevention, Ella.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
So you've never done a podcast before, huh?
No, I haven't. This is a first.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Thank you.
So before we get into our subject, why don't we talk a little bit about your background?
Well, I founded McDonald Land Services on what I call the Cornerstone of Success, which is really a buzzword now. You know, you're hearing that a lot and people are beginning to be more aware of it, but based upon integrity, honesty, and ethical behavior. And we've worked really hard to foster that. You know, I grew up on a dairy farm in southern Oklahoma. And so at a very early age, I learned how important those three things are. Because, you know, being a part of the family and the livelihood, the cows are expensive. I don't remember what they cost then or anything, but you know, if you were to lose one or something happened, and we sold grade A milk, and that was it was very important to maintain that level. Everybody had a job, even the dogs and the cats,
and it has to all be done to a certain standard.
Yes, exactly. And we were graded by inspectors, and if you didn't meet that level, then you were knocked down to a grade C, which was a big difference in price, and so. Obviously, it was very important that we did that. So,
and how does that translate for you to land work?
Same thing. You know, you have to be accountable and honest. And that's one thing we pride ourselves on with the client. You know, if, for instance, that we can't complete something in the time frame in which they're giving us, you know, we're honest with them and just make our suggestions or recommendations or whatever. But it's our obligation to represent them and ourselves and the people that we're dealing with, you know, whether it be a mineral or surface owner or whatever. But that really led to the success of this business.
So you have a great story about how you got into the business. Why don't you share it with our audience?
Okay. Well, in 1978, which, you know, March the 1st will be 48 years. That's a long time. We've come a long way, baby. But anyway, I was helping a friend at this little exploration company, and the guys were bringing in ownership reports, and they were having me check everything. And I was really interested in history anyway, and I thought, well, I think I'd like to do this. And so I asked Larry about, you know, how could I learn to be a landman? Or his title attorney had said that he was happy for me to go to the courthouse with him, and he'd show me how they do a stand-up. And so little punk Larry said, there aren't any female landmen in the field. So, honey, you can be a landman when pigs could fly. Well, that didn't deter me at all. So I was determined to find a way to be a landman. So my husband was a police officer, and one of his friends had left the police department years before and had a very successful brokerage firm. So he recommended I run down and talk to him in Oklahoma City. So I did. And Terry was just flustered. He didn't know what to do. It's like, I don't know, because there probably were some females in the field, but not many, if any. And so he said, well, let me think about it, which I knew that meant I wasn't going to get a job. So I went home. I was so discouraged. I walked in and Max said, well, how'd it go? And I said, it didn't. I said, he's not going to give me a job either. And he goes, oh, yes, he is, because he just called to see if it's okay with me if he gave you a job. And so luckily for him, he said yes. So, so I reported the Monday and got there, and Terry said, well, I've been thinking, and I want you to work in the office for a month. And I thought again, well, we know where this is going.
Yeah.
And so I said, sure. I was happy to do that. And really, he did me the biggest favor, because I learned how important it was when the reports came in that they were accurate. If there were a mistake or something, then, what happened to correct that. Anyway, so at the end of the month, then I just went in and I said, okay, I'm ready to go to the field. And he was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do with her?
Did he think you were just going to change your mind and stay in the office?
Yes. Or I would just give up and go away. But I didn't. And so I started at $35 a day, which I was thrilled with, just to be able to go do it. Then that was plus expenses. So, So anyway, while out in the field, the guys the group of started at the same time. And so they shared the fact that they were making $75 a day. Oh, really? So Monday rolls around and I marched into Terry's office and I said, we need to have us a little come to Jesus meeting here.
Yeah.
And I told him, that I knew they were making $75. And he goes, well, they have a family and they have kids to raise. I said, well, what do you think I'm raising, rabbits? And so I got my $75. And anyway, that was the start of it.
Yeah. Well, what made you decide to start your own brokerage firm?
They had me and this other gentleman to train people, and I learned pretty quickly, I guess, and was aggressive. And I was talking to my partner there, and I said, well, this is kind of crazy. We're working for them. Why don't we just do it ourselves? So somehow we just, okay, and we started a company. I was anything from the secretary to the trainer to the janitor to you name it. I did it all. And he did too. He worked more in the field. But anyway, so we did that for 2 years, and then I bought him out and started McDonald Land Services then.
I mean, you say it like it's nothing. It takes a lot to start your own business.
I look back. In fact, I was speaking at a group a while back, and this young man said, well, what was your plan B if it didn't work out? And I stopped for a minute. I thought somebody had thrown cold water on my face. It never occurred to me, even to this day, to have had a plan B. It had to work. That's all there was to it. It had to work. And I was so focused on the business and making sure it was going to work and provide for everybody. And we had a bunch of people working for us, too.
Yeah.
And I had my priorities kind of out of line. And once I got that straight with God first, family second, and career third, is when my pig flew. So she's been on a journey since then.
Yeah, I love how I'll see one of your cards and it's got the little pig with wings.
Yes, and her red lipstick.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk back to the Cornerstones of Success, because I know that's what you wanted to share with us today. So it's honesty, integrity, and ethical behavior.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Walk me through that and why it's so important. Maybe you might have an example or two.
I do. So back in the early 80s, when I was still with my partner, I was the marketing person also. So I was at an exploration company in Oklahoma City, and they were a pretty good sized company. And so the land manager and I were visiting about it. He was very receptive, very warm, and encouraging me. And I told him about our company and all we could do. And so then we got down to invoicing. And he said, explain to me how often we'd invoice and such as that. And then he said, well, and $25 of every person that works for you each day would be funneled back to me. And I couldn't even say anything. I had heard that could happen, and I didn't really believe it. And so I just gathered my stuff up and got my handbag and said, well, we don't do business like that. And so we won't be back.
Yeah.
And I walked out and I was just panic stricken. I just thought, what in the world? And then I thought, well, could that be a test? Could he be seeing because we're new and would we do anything, to get a job? And so the more I thought about it, I thought, no, but I was curious about him. So what brings someone to that point? And part of it, I believe, is greed, of course, and always wanting to make a fast buck.
Yes.
Easily. And I just thought, this is such a shame. It was my first encounter with an unethical behavior.
But not your last, I'm sure.
No. But, it was just, I just wonder about when that all happened, was it as a child, or was he competitive and maybe trying to keep up with somebody else or whatever? I don't know what happened to him. And the company itself then, of course, Penn Square Bank fell, and that I think they were gobbled up by another company, but they went away anyway. So that's the most important encounter that I had early on in my career. And I think a part of this, I've studied about it myself and wondering why. And like today, I think our children are not being taught responsibility. Like on the farm I was talking about, I mean, that was your whole goal, was to make sure everything was as good as it could be.
Yeah.
And, we want everybody to be a winner now. And, life isn't fair. And there are losers. I've been a loser plenty of times myself.
But you learn something from losing, right? If you win all the time, you're not learning anything.
That's right. And you can't apply it. And I think we've made the mistake of, all of us are guilty of it, making sure our kids did better than we did and had more of whatever. But there comes a time, because those three things, honesty, integrity, and ethics, we're not born with those. We have to make that choice every day.
Absolutely.
And if they don't learn it at an early age, then by the time they get older, and we've gotten to the point where we just expect those things to happen.
And, these cornerstones of success, honesty, integrity, ethical standards, it can't just be something that you say, right? It can't just stop with Ella McDonald. It has to go throughout your organization. So tell me some more about how you do that.
Well, we're obligated to our clients, and we're obligated to our brokers. The brokers are obligated to us. And what we do is to provide a good product for efficiently and effectively, and the most cost effectively. And so we watch out for that. We really scrutinize what we do. And we have such a good team of people that they're seasoned, and they work hard. And we expect them, to, I don't care what hours you work, just produce the product and give me a day's work for a day's pay.
Yeah.
And, I know that has, followed on through with everyone in the company, and they do a good job. And we try to be you're always going to make some mistakes, but overall, we do a very efficient job.
Well, I find that when you have standards like that across your company, it's actually very easy to spot when someone is not meeting that standard,
yes.
Right?
And, we also look at, so you have a finished product and you have an invoice, because I always want and tell everyone, put yourself in the client's position. So when they get an invoice and they compare it against the product, is that going to balance out? Sometimes they can't understand that, as you well know, there are going to be tracks that are going to be a lot harder that don't show that or reflect it in the finished product.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what we do. We try to balance and make sure that it can be justified. And if not, then why? And we can defend that to the client.
Right.
We just need to be fair and tell him this is what happened and why.
And when you have that reputation for fairness, right, then you get less questions like that.
Yes.
Right? People give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, yes. And they they tend to even tell us, that's why we call you, because we know you guys are honest and you'll tell us fairly. And, it's our responsibility, sometimes I say, to protect the client from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they'll want to maybe pay too much or, maybe, okay, pay this mineral owner a little bit more and have them sign a non-disclosure. I went, yeah, that'll last as long as they can make it to the coffee shop. It's just not going to work. And you can't be unfair like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dishonest.
Yeah.
So that would be on our part, too, to play into that. And we just don't do it.
Mm-hmm. So tell me more about the growth and expansion of your company.
Well, we started out working Oklahoma and the states surrounding us. And then we had the opportunity to go out to the East Coast, the Appalachia and the Marcellus, and we've been there for a very long time, and then expanded out to the Rockies, and we're in all of the basins practically. And so, over the years, we've just continued to grow, and we engage in the communities where we start out and just become a part of it. And then so that we establish a relationship with the people and a reputation too.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad always said, you only have your word and your reputation. And I tell him, I don't need somebody else muddling around in there because I can do enough myself. So let's just be straight about this whole thing.
Yeah. I love that you say all that you have is your word and your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we've talked about this before. You see things in the news and you hear things through scuttlebutt, and it's amazing some of the things that folks are doing, getting caught doing, and yet they're still around and their companies are flourishing.
I know. It's really frustrating when you try to do the right thing.
Right.
And you're not rewarded for it. And that fast buck,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand why, with forensics the way it is and people digging to find answers, how they think they're not going to get caught. The perfect scheme is never perfect.
Yeah.
And the consequences of it. And I don't know how you could show your face after being discovered something, even mistakes, those hurt too, but something very big and dishonest. I don't know how you could stay in the community.
Yeah, they
do. It doesn't seem to bother them.
It doesn't seem to bother them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that all you have is your reputation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're all, holding ourselves to a certain standard, eventually it all sort of comes out in the wash.
It
hopefully.
Does. It does. And I can attest to that, for being around for 48 years, even during all the ups and downs, or I call it the chicken or the feathers. And I've spit out plenty of feathers during this long tenure. And, I know that there are people that will call us, me personally, years later
Mm-hmm.
from something we had done at one time, and they remembered, and it just will pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a long struggle, but, my kids and grandkids, they know and they've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And we have such a good team of people that had followed suit.
So tell me more about that. So you've got some of your family working at the company.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandson, David, started out with us. He was the first one, his oldest grandson. And then he had an opportunity after many years with us. He was trying to decide, do I take this other job? And he didn't want to leave. And he was very instrumental in our business. And he just couldn't make up his mind. And one day he came in, I was really busy. And he said, well, what should I do? And I said, look, if you don't take that job, I'm going to fire you and you're going to need a job. So scram. So he did. And so, but then I have his sister, Mackenzie, and my daughter and my son-in-law has worked for us often. And then the youngest grandson
Mm-hmm.
is with us, and he graduated OU. And so he's been with us like 5 years now. And so I know that between our VPs and, Matthew Fish and Jesse Faley and Megan Johnson and so many others, and we have April and everybody, there's just so many, you can't name them, but they all form this bond and we work together, and they will carry on the company whenever whatever happens with me, I know that it's in good hands. And we've set that standard, and they live it and believe it, And I'm very proud to think that my children and grandchildren have followed through and that they want to take the company on and as it is. So we all learn, and they've learned a lot, and I have too.
Well, I really like that thing that you do when someone in your family wants to join the company, where you make them start at the very bottom.
Yes. David and Mackenzie both started out David, I guess, actually started in Oklahoma. And then we got that Marcellus job. And so he moved out there. And then Mackenzie did too. I bundled her up and sent her out there. Her mother drove out with her and then flew her mother home. And Mackenzie was quite young. And she stayed out there, I think, 9 years. And Drew, I mean, he's been in all these different states working, and I just tell him, you cannot be a manager if that's what you choose to do. You cannot do that if you haven't been in the field and you know what's expected and what it takes to produce a product.
Yes,
and then you need to sacrifice. I mean, I was out there a long time.
Yeah.
Slinging books and doing what I did, and it's only right that they have to do that too.
Yeah, we'll make them earn their way in.
And poor Marty, here she's our CFO, and she's just put up with all this. And I said, they love me most of the time until I go, I have this idea. I think we can do this. And they just give me the big eye roll.
But you're the CEO. That's what you're supposed to be doing.
Hey, here's an idea.
Here's an idea.
Sometimes it gets shot down. But
All right, before we close, I really want to touch on, you just received a very, very special award. Tell us about that.
Thank you. I was so surprised. It was the OCAPL Lifetime Achievement Award. And when Sam McCurdy called me that morning, I was just working away, and I thought, maybe he's going to give us some work. And hi, Sam. And he said I had been selected for an award, and he didn't want to tell me, which one it was. And I told the kids, I said, well, I know it has to be the one for still being alive for this many years and still working in this crazy business of ours.
The Refusal to Retire Award?
Yes. Yes, and I was so proud, and then I was the first female, too, to receive it.
That's really cool.
Oh, it is. And I tell the women, I looked out and I said, I'm accepting this for myself, but for all of you, too. Just think of the glass ceilings that have been broken in almost 50 years. It's amazing look at your firm, what you've done, and these women that are CEOs of big companies, and I am so proud of them. And I tell them also, if you have a dream, there is not one thing that can keep you from making that dream happen except yourself. And you have to just step out, regardless of the naysayers. If you want to do it, do it. And there is nothing. How many people have you ever heard say, gee, I'm at the end of my career here, going to retire, but I always wanted to do whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, don't go that route. Life is too short. Just jump in and do it. If it doesn't work, so what? Go on to the next thing.
Yeah. When I started, I said, look, if it doesn't work, I can always get another job.
Yes.
I'm not always going to have the opportunity to do this.
That's exactly right.
Well, hey, I just have to say thank you, because I am very much one of the women that you paved the path for.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been a rocky road at times, but one I wouldn't change. And, I've been fortunate that I didn't ever have to go into another field during these periods of times when things had gotten bad.
Yeah.
And, it was a struggle plenty of times, but, it's made us all stronger. And the other thing about the family is they've seen that struggle, and they're just so happy. And the people who are working for us, like I said, our VPs, when we took this trip recently, they said, don't call us. We'll handle this. Go and have fun and enjoy yourself. They really, really mean that. And that is it means so much to me and my my kids too, that they just all say, okay, we're in for every bit of it. So I appreciate that too.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
But thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
Well, thank you for having me and letting me share my little pig story. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
The information and material in this episode is general information about our practice and firm and is for educational and informational purposes only. This information does not offer specific legal advice, and the use of this information does not create an attorney-client relationship with RRNA or any of its attorneys. The information in this episode, or any episode of An Ounce of Prevention, should not be considered legal advice, and persons should not act upon this information without first engaging professional legal counsel.
Thank you for listening to An Ounce of Prevention, presented by R. Reese and Associates. If you found this episode informative, subscribe to, rate, and review our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to stay up to date with future episodes, case law updates, and breaking news. If you have any questions or are interested in learning what RRNA's outsourced legal department can do for your company, reach out to us at podcast@rreselaw.com. That's podcast@rreselaw.com. Follow us on LinkedIn or call 832-831-2289.